Hello and welcome to the second part of Snipeit. So as we were saying, we in the last segment we reviewed uh, its code, its repository, and more importantly, we agreed that it is a free open source IT asset management system written in PHP. So they talk about asset management. Assets could be computers, laptops, could be licenses for the software as a service products that you're running, and you need to keep an inventory of that and be reminded when they're due for maintenance or renewal. So let us install this. I like opening the product website. Here it is. So they're saying say goodbye to spreadsheets, say hello to a powerful user-friendly asset management system your team uh, can rely on, or something like that. So uh, they talk about the features: REST API, security, uh, powerful interface. Um, what else? Free forever. So if you host it yourself, Snipeit is completely free. You can take advantage of one of our hosting support. So the way they monetize it is they host for you and you pay it as a service. But if you decide to host it for yourself, which you're going to do, it's free, right? So let's get into it. So the other thing I like looking at is official documentation, if it's there. Again, I will just right click on it. So I'm on Google. You can just Google Snipeit. So the name does not communicate asset management. It sounds like you're snipping something using the Windows snip tool. So Snipeit is a free open source project built on Laravel. That is quite important to know, that it is built on Laravel. It's a framework. So if you wanted to know more about Laravel, you can go to the Laravel page and they can tell you. It's an MVC framework built on PHP. Now I'm interested in the installation section. So the requirements. So there's requirements, downloading, configuration, install dependencies, generate your app key, pre-flight, and setup. Yeah, so we are basically gonna dwell on this part, the installation, up to where we run it. Now let me go to requirements. This is it's fairly standard for modern web server, and most servers will have most or all of these components. Now so there's a note here: if you're installing Snipeit on shared hosting, you should have most of these installed already, with exception of LDAP. So LDAP is the protocol you use to authenticate users when you're using Active Directory as an access management system to manage access to your infrastructure. So you use, when you're using Active Directory, then LDAP is the protocol that you will use. So it can be used for authentication. As you can see, they're saying LDAP integration may not be possible on shared hosting depending on your web host. But for our demonstration, we will use username and password. So they're saying email your hosting providers. Yeah. So let's go and see. So they require PHP 8.1 extensions. They've done a pretty good job by listing all these. So for the database, if you're using MySQL, then you'll need this, MySQL or MariaDB. For MariaDB, yeah, that will work. So MySQL or MariaDB, GD library, Notepad++ for editing. Laravel comes with environment variables file, and you might need to edit that. I'm going to be installing this on a Linux system. So Git is highly recommended. So when you're downloading, we're going to use Git. So what I'll do, I'll quickly navigate to the command prompt and I'll run it as admin. So I'll also open Docker because I'm running MySQL, I think 8.5 or something on Docker, and that is what I'm going to use. I'm not going to install any other MySQL database, RDBMS. So as Docker is opening, I'm going to go to my Windows subsystem for Linux. And the default distro I've installed on the Windows subsystem for Linux is Ubuntu. So let me give it a second to load. So there we are. My Ubuntu has given me access. So what I'll do, I'll just go back to the requirements. So as you can see, so they require PHP 8.1. So here you can do PHP version. So I'm running on 8.3, and the extensions they're looking at, most of them I have them. So PHP M. So as you can see, I have sodium. I have you can actually use grep to try and see whether you can filter what is required by this to see whether you have it. So I have Carl, I have JSON here, PDO, you can see MySQL, what else? Why is PDO? PDO is really needed for the database. So I have almost I think I have everything that is needed. So I just clear the screen. Let me just clear that way. Then the other thing, I'll just minimize so that we're able to see. The other thing they haven't mentioned here is Composer, because Laravel manages its dependencies using Composer. So Composer V. So as you can see, the version, I have Composer 2.71. So you can look up how Composer is installed in a Linux environment. For Windows, let's just have a look at Composer. So here I'm just dealing with the dependencies. So you can see Composer is an application level dependency manager for PHP. If you scroll down, you'll see get started. So for Windows, it will be pretty simple. You will use an installer. So for Linux, locally, globally. So locally, so Composer setup, install. All the documentation is here. So you will download, and then you move it to user local bin Composer for it to be accessible globally without navigating to the folder where it has been downloaded every time. So that is Composer. Now, given that we have all these, they are saying you need Git. So Git is the last thing I will just clear. It's the last thing I'll just showcase before we go to the actual downloading. So Git V. So I just do Git. So so I don't know how I can get the version, but as you can see, Git is installed. So we're actually going to use Git clone a repository into a new directory. So that is the next thing that we are going to do. And before that, let me check on my Docker. So my Docker has loaded up. Just switch off one container here. So MySQL 8.0 running on port 3308 externally. So I'll start that. So my MySQL is running. It's up and running. Now I'm in my Ubuntu host via the WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux, and I will navigate. And I'm using nginx. Let me just show you nginx version 1.271. So it's pretty much set up the infrastructure. So we are just going to walk through the installation process, assuming all the other operational dependencies have been installed. So I'll go to my root directory via www.html. So that is what WSL uses. Nginx uses, and so here we can ls and see what I have. So from here, I'll create a directory. I'll create a directory, Snipeit. Let me just do sudo so that I just do this as the admin. Make directory Snipeit. There we are. Then I'm going to cd into it. Let me clear the screen. So from here on, now we go to downloading. We are done with the requirements. We go to the downloading. So they're saying git clone. As I said, it's the recommended way. If you have git installed on your server, this will be the easiest way to install Snipeit so that you can grab updates. So from our Google, so the repository is here. So as it loads, so let's have a look at it again. So you can see the last commit was done about 3 days ago. It was a merge. So it's something that is in active development, and that is one of the things that I like to see in open source software. That's something that has a lot of activity. Now, the documentation says, so we'll do a git clone, and you take the URL of the repository. So you go to code, there's a drop down, and we will use SSH by default. Or let's just use HTTPS, the HTTP link. And then what we will do a git clone. I'll say I like providing the branch. So what branch is this? This is the master branch. So provide the branch. I don't want to download everything. Branch master, and then that, and then inside the space, and then the period to tell Git that I want to clone all that code inside my parent directory. So enter. It's cloning everything. So we'll look at configuration. So it's downloading. So what you see now, Laravel will come with an example environment file, and you should copy all that content into an actual env file. So the env file is what will be passed by the application to know where the various configurations values are. So let's see whether it has completed, and we can get into that. Not yet, we are at 75%. There's an important notice here. Snipeit caches these variables for you to speed up things. If you make subsequent changes to this file, make sure you run. So that is a maintenance command via the artisan interface, CLI. So you do php artisan config clear to clear compiled versions to see your changes. Yeah, so once we finish with this, we are being told if we further down the road we make any changes, then this is how we should refresh it because of a cache issue. So let me just go back again. Yeah, it has completed 100%. So we'll just clear and we can do an ls LA. So you can see everything has been downloaded. There's a bunch of files everywhere. So as I said, it has downloaded everything, but I don't know why they have not mentioned about Composer. Or let me see whether in downloading they have mentioned anything to do with Composer. No, they haven't mentioned. How do they expect people to know about it? Anyway, they have gone straight to the environment variables, but for me then I will add something. So remember I said Composer is the PHP package manager, so we'll say Composer install. So as root, yes. So all the packages that come with Laravel and the ones the developer has added are supposed to be installed using Composer. So without that, you will not see the features that have made this system, because these are not versioned. It would make it a little bit inefficient if we decided to version these third-party packages. So it's only the core code that is versioned in GitHub. So we are done. So you can see on 45 packages you are using looking for funding, and we have installed all these. So anything else we need to do? No, not really. Now we can proceed with the env file. So we're saying we do a copy of the .env example into an env file. So we have done that. Now let's try to see what else they want us to do. So the env looks like this. Required basic app settings. Okay. Now let's look at the database section. So I'll use the nano text editor env. So, and I'll only dwell with what I feel concerns us. So app environment is production app debug. Since we are testing, let's just we want to debug true, so that in case of any errors we're able to see them. But for a production environment, ideally this should be false, so that you do not give a lot of verbose information about your system. Now app URL is null. So for me, I will create a local DNS entry in the hosts file that will read something like local.snipeit.com, because it will be running locally. http, yeah. So that will be the local URL. Then connection, database connection. Yeah, this is the only thing we need. So remember, so in WSL, since we are running this particular application in WSL is the localhost. So we're going to use that loopback IP address, and outside, as you can see, this is localhost 3308. So that is what we're just gonna add here, the port 3308. No. The port is 3308. 3308 user. There we have the port. So just leave this and dbl. Do I have a database called? We'll name it Snipeit, and username, call it root, and the password will be yeah. So that should be sufficient enough for us to continue. So I'll not set up anything else in regards to emails. So for now, we set up that. Control X and then Y. Yes. Now, for you to be able to access this app using a URL, we could do localhost, but we need to create. I'm now going into the administration bit, the engineering bit. We need to create an entry in the hosts file. So let's see, nano etc hosts. Yeah, so I had created one. So my local IP address here is 172. Here it is. So you map your local host IP address to your preferred name. Now, any request that is that comes to this server and points out to local.snipeit.com will be routed as if it was in localhost, because this is the main server. So let me do Control X and I can do IP address. So if I do IP address, then you see, I want to show you, you can see the loop back, which is 127.0.0.1. And then you can also see the Ethernet 0, which is 172.28.57.107. So I'm basically saying localhost, this is the same as for this host, for this particular node, any IP address that any request that comes bearing this address, redirect it to that record, that DNS entry name, that domain name, that local domain name. So this local snippet is a domain name, which is local. Then the other thing we need to do, and you could probably copy these, is creating an nginx configuration file. So mine, I store them at etc. Sorry, not mine, but when you're dealing with nginx, there's a folder where all configuration files are stored, and for these usually is etc nginx confd. This is where all nginx configuration files should be stored. Now, before I just do nano, let me just do cd so that I can show you the nature of this directory. So for everything that I'm hosting within my WSL Ubuntu installation, I'll, whether it's a forward proxying or it's just purely routing for web applications, I will store the configuration files in etc nginx confd. And as you can see, I have other applications and each has its own configuration file. So let's see what I've done with Snipeit. Remember, we've installed Snipeit, but we just want to access it from our Windows host. That's why we're going through the trouble of doing a little bit of administration work or engineering work around it. So as you can see, we're going to use in the server block, we're going to be listening to port 80 for all the requests that reference local.snipeit.com. So remember, we have done in our local DNS entry, the hosts file, we have mapped the IP address of WSL node to local.snipeit.com. Now you can see how it's coming together. So this file will be consumed by nginx. It tells nginx how to route requests that how to provide resources that are requesting local.snipeit.com. So for error handling, for logging, we are providing two files. For the error is snippet.error.log. For anything to do with access logs, we are giving a path for access.log. And these are quite important when you're troubleshooting. For now, I have commented everything to do with SSL because we are not provisioning SSL inside here, but we could actually do it. So root, as you can see, this is quite important. This is the index of this is the access file of your application. So where do you find the index file, the entry point of your application? So remember, we did create a folder where we downloaded the code at var www html snippet public. So public is where we expect to have that index.php file that now fires up the whole, it bootstraps everything within Laravel. So you see the index is the index file here. Again, the second directive is index.php. And then there's some considerations because we're just doing the basic installation that I have also, these are security considerations, the security headers, the content security policy, and probably in another video I have spoken about this, about the security posture in regards to web applications, and I will link it here. But for now, I have commented all these. They're pretty restrictive, but when you're doing a production deployment, you need to think about this. Now, the other thing I've done here is to rewrite all requests to index.php. As I said, index.php is the entry point, which is found in public folder. Now, any requests that come to the root have to pass by index.php. And then the second location just stipulates how to handle any request that asks for a PHP file. That this is how it should be handled. We have given the CGI. The CGI for that is founded. This is basically the PHP engine that will be running this application. That you're telling nginx how to process, how to interpret PHP related requests. And after that, that's all. It is very good when you are working with nginx to look for errors. You could say nginx test, and you can see what you need to look out for is syntax is okay, test is successful, and you're a happy guy. So let me clear everything. So let's proceed. We'll go back to the documentation. So after doing all that, they're talking about installing dependencies. So I'm guessing this is where now they call Composer. Yeah. So we were a bit ahead of them. Composer install. And then here they say do not install development dependencies. prefer source. So they have added a little bit more flags or switches than we did. So we have already done that. Generate your app key. So we have an application key. So they're saying once you've downloaded Snipeit, set up your configuration file, so which we did in your env file, and install dependencies. You'll need to set up an app key. So this is for security reasons. It's used by the app for security purposes and cookie handling also. This should okay. So let's just run this PHP artisan file very quickly. So remember, we are not at the application directory, so we need to go back there, var www html snippet. So if this runs properly well, you know you're on the right track. So we do PHP artisan key generate. As you can see, we are there. So are you sure you want to run this command? Yes. So I'm using the left key to switch to yes. Application key set successfully. And if we go to nano.env, because that is where it's set, you can see it was blank, but now it has been set. This is our application key. So yours should also be in a similar fashion, should be a base 64, but not identical. So just clear that. Then the other thing is pre-flight setup. Snipeit comes with a pre-flight check and setup to make sure that your environment is correctly set. Create a database table and add your first admin. So before that, there's one thing that we have not done. We have not set up a database. So let's just confirm the name of our database .env. So what we set it up? So we said it's Snipeit, as you can see where I am. So the database should be Snipeit. That's the value. So this is the schema we are going to create. Now I'm going to fire up my workbench. It's the interface that I use to interact with databases when I'm on Windows. So I'll fire up my instance here, my root password. I think I did not type it well. Should be good. Now here's where we have our databases. So I just right click and create a schema. I'll call it Snipeit. I'll click apply, finish. I'll refresh. Should have it somewhere here. So this is my schema, has 0 tables. So if everything goes well, the Snipeit interface should be able to create for me the migrations, should be able to run for me the migrations. So as you can see, we will begin with the configuration check, create database tables, create admin user, and then I will be finished. Now, so let's get to our browser here. I like using Mozilla. Let me just use Mozilla here. Mozilla for developers. Now, in Windows, remember we are in a Linux system in here that is running on Windows subsystem for Linux. So it's essentially a different server that is that is inside a Windows host. So we need also a way to ensure that this URL of ours the local.snipeit.com is understood by Windows and it's routed to this particular to WSL, to that host. So what we will do, where's PowerShell? Windows also, remember, since it's a different environment, so we are basically simulating what you do in a production VM. So Windows also has its own way of maintaining DNS records locally, and to tell it how basically it should route requests of a particular nature. So here we'll go to cd drivers etc. So it seems everything Windows and Linux, all of them have etc. So it will be etc, and then from etc we go to Notepad. Now we are in Windows, we use Notepad, then hosts. As you can see, I've also created here the IP address for that local WSL, that is our server. Then it is mapped to local.snipeit.com. So if I enter this URL, in my address bar, it should resolve something that makes sense. Exactly. So we are told that, so we're already in the system now. We are told that the stream or file, this could not be opened in append mode, failed to open stream, permission denied. Then now you're dealing with a system that is running inside Linux. So I'll cancel this. I just cancel. You do not want to mess with these hosts records, but you have seen their nature. So what I'll do, this is a permission issue, and I like it when we get into those kinds of errors. So I'll close this. So I'll do an ls la just to show you something. The permissions here are so limited, and also the user who is running this is not necessarily the user who is running nginx. So we need to change that, the ownership, and we also need to adjust the files, the permissions of the files. So how do we do that? I'll just clear that. We will begin by changing the file permissions. So do chmod recursive for all files, and we'll do 755, then everything in that directory. Now if we do lsla, you can see we have read, write, execute for most of the files, and this should ideally clear this error. So the stream could not open in append mode, failed to, permission denied. I highly think now it's the user who is root, and since we are running nginx comes with its own user who is nginx, and you can configure PHP to tell it who will run the CGI. So in this case it's nginx who is running that, and I'll do chi on nginx. It will be recursive. This is recursive, the entire directory and subdirectories within it. So that should sort us out. lsla. Here you can see it's nginx now who owns this. I hope we are good. Exactly. So now we are where we wanted to be. So as you can see, the pre-flight, this page will do a system check to make sure your system looks correct. will add your first user on the next page. So you're basically looking at whether everything that is required to run this system properly is up and running. So the database, great work, connected to Snipeit. Yeah, that is the database that we just created here, has no tables. In a short while, we are going to run the migration and you'll see all the tables. So GD is installed. I know email, we did not configure that, but probably we will do it in a subsequent video. So let's just go to the next step. So they're saying create database tables. So I'll just click this and it should run. So your database has been created. So I tend to think it's our configuration that could not sustain that. Let me see, nano etc nginx, but the database, at least we're in step 2, so you should expect that. As a side note, I went through the troubles of trying to troubleshoot any timeout issues you might have with nginx when you're running long processes out of your server, such as migrations. So for this, you can add timeout directives on your nginx configuration file. So let's see what we can add to prevent those timeouts in our config file. So that one can be set. It's set in seconds. By default, it should be around 60 seconds or 1 minute. So the purpose of this directive, it's to set timeout for keep alive connections with clients. So let's see, and you can see the impact. If the client remains idle for longer than keep alive timeout, nginx will close the connection. So when you're doing things to do with polling or something like that, you could set this. So keep alive timeout. So this one would say 5 minutes. Header timeout. Again at 5 minutes. So we've set the client alive timeout, client header timeout, client body timeout, and the send timeout. Those are the timeout headers for now that we can add to prevent nginx from timing out while running long processes. So I'll do yes. I've saved it. So the thing we need to do is do nginx test, and we have no errors. So we have successfully set out those headers, the timeout headers, and that should prevent your nginx from basically timing out. So let's continue. So the next thing to do will be creating an admin user. So let's see. So migration output, database installed, create user. So this is the account information you will use to access the site for the first time. So we'll be careful with this. So site name, just call it it's not necessary, Snipeit. I'll just call it asset manager. I'll call it Gunzo. Asset manager. English is okay. Default currency is KS. Generator to incrementing asset tags, yes. Full multiple company support, yes. That is multi-tenancy. Let me just take a notepad here, just in case of any credentials that I set. So prefix optional, length of asset tags including zeros, 5 is okay, I'll go with that. Email domain, I'll call it this one I'll call it Gonzo Systems. Yeah. Email format, yeah, it's okay. Then first name, this is Francois. Uh, then email, fjb at gonzosystems.com. So I'm just showing you how to set it up. And then this is Francis. I like saving all these details in a text file. That is quite easy to use it as a password manager, not best practice. So username here and password Francis123. So you need to set strong passwords. So this is just for demo purposes. Email my credentials to email. No, don't email them. We have not set it up. So save user. So they're saying this application is running in production mode with the debugging enabled. This exposes sensitive data if application is accessible to the outside world. Disable debug mode by setting up debug value in your env file to false. So that is what we are gonna do, but we did it because we wanted to troubleshoot. When you're installing something for the first time, there will be issues, and as you can see, log warning, parameter 1, there's some errors, there's some warnings. Basically those are, but the moment we turn them off. But when you're developing, it is very good for you to ensure that you are in debug mode. So there you are, and as we wrap up, let's just make the adjustments the application is demanding, so that we have a proper system that's running without any warnings here. Now I'll go back to where the application folder, cd var www html snippet, then I'll access the .env. So the app environment, app debug, this should be false. So it should stop complaining. Click Y and I'll save it. Then I should be able to reload. Yeah, so everything is okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we have installed the Snipeit asset management / license management application. So this is your dashboard. There are many like it, but this one is yours. So you'll have new assets over here. Then you have another tab for new license. You have another tab for creating new accessory, new consumable, and then at the top you have assets, you have licenses, you have accessories, consumables, components, and people. People are also assets. So at the very top you have the name of your app. So you remember when we were setting it up, we called it Gumzo Asset Manager, and then you can see we have a tab for assets, licenses. These are shortcuts that should take you to where each component list is. So assets, you will click on that. So you can say you go to the list view for your assets. You can try to create one. You have the actions there. Now you can see we will have quite a bit of setups. You'll have you need to have a company's setup that has companies in it, so that you're able to generate to further add details of an asset. So right back at the top we have licenses. Again, it's a list that has various columns. You can create a license, the software name, if it's Office 365 or whatever it is, the category, then seats. I don't know what that means. But this could be the number of users. Then you have minimum quantity, the product key, the company, all those details. It seems comprehensive. The purchase date, expiration date. This is quite key, and I'm sure there's somewhere where it's running cron jobs. Termination date, purchase order number, depreciation, maintained, yes or no, notes. For me, if you ask me, everything is there that you need to do to manage a license. So you have accessories also. This could be keyboards, could be Docker hubs, could be mice, could be anything, USB sticks. So you can create also that it has to belong to a company. Our accessory name, it could be a printer, it could be, a consumable. No, by the way, this is just an accessory, not a consumable, right? So you also have consumables. You can create it. So the company, consumable, model, item, manufacturer, supplier, you have all those details. And you can see they have made it easy for you. Instead of going to another setup, you can create, if it's categories, you can create a category on the fly. You can call it printer accessory, and you can save, and you can see it's available immediately. Supplier, you can call it Rexo Equipments Ltd. Yeah. So manufacturer, you can also add that one. You can say HP. Yeah. Location, you can say the name, city, country. Oh, this is nice. So location, you can just say Ngara, Nairobi, and then Kenya. Do we have that? Yeah, we have it. Save. So you can see it's quite interesting, and that is a great usability feature that I do not have to get out of this setup to create new setup variables. I haven't gone through it a lot, but I'm liking what I can see. So upload, notes, minimum quantity. I love it. So is there anything, does it allow, you can see there's validation, consumable name. So just go back. I'll not set up anything. Components, also there are components you can maintain. Component name, category. Again, you have this, it's like an assist button edit, an assist button. Basically, you can edit this setup, the category. Yeah. So minimum quantity, serial, manufacturer. I love it. I love it. If it's a system solely for assets, IT assets management and license management, I love it. I love it. It meets the minimum threshold and it goes above and beyond. You can see they say it's assets, but even though it's assets, then they categorize them. There's a license, there's an accessory, there's a consumable, there's a component. Eventually, you can also now, as admin, create further users and give them permissions. Laravel comes with a permission facility where you can have roles and permissions. So you can see you have global users, admin users, CSV import. Those people who can be able to these will allow users to import even if access to user assets etc is denied elsewhere. Yeah, so you can see the permissions. As you can see for assets, you have a list of permissions. For accessories, the same. For consumables, for licenses, for components, for kits, for categories, departments, status levels. Basically, for each entity, you have the CRUD based permissions, which is very good. It's granular permissions, and roles are based on entities. So that is interesting. So you can grant permissions. You can grant, you can deny, you can inherit. So I think a user should be given a role. Let me see, optional information, select company. Do not have companies yet. Language, employee number, that is interesting. Title, manager. Oh, the one you're reporting to. Start date, end date, VIP user, auto assign licenses. So this can be helpful to mark important people in your org if you would like to handle them in a special way. Okay, I don't know how it relates to a role. Auto assign licenses. This allows users to have licenses assigned via bulk assigned license UI or CLI tools. For example, you might want contractors to be auto assigned a license that. Okay. Address, that's location details. Group. Now groups have been created. To add, visit admin settings. Okay. So where are the admin settings? Let's see. Okay. Oh, these are the settings where you have the cogs, the LDAP, and you have Samuel, login terms, backup, system information. Okay. Groups. So these are the groups talking about for the users. Okay, interesting. So there's quite a lot. In fact, you can see there's something called bring your own device. That's a policy that a lot of companies don't get right also. Predefined kits. What are these? Create new. Okay. I don't know. I might need to look at this a little bit more. People. You have only Francis. Groups. Login. But why are you assigning? The permissions? Let me see. Because I don't know. Let me see. Group permissions. Create new. Oh, wow. Group name administrators. Administrator. So you give them that. Super user. Admin. Okay. Okay. Report view. Do you need to also manually add these permissions? Wow, this could be cumbersome. Then what's the need of giving someone the super admin right? Okay, because I thought you should define you should have a role. It's okay. Then let me save this. So from courses there, from so. Nothing much has changed to the dashboard. What about? But I can see we have reports here. Audit logs. There's nothing there. Customer sets reports. The reports are pretty comprehensive. Activity report. Right. Asset maintenance. Then you have settings, manufacturers, companies. So you can see that. So the setups that we were not seeing, that we were when we were trying to add assets, you can see you can add companies here. Let's create one. We'll say Consumables Systems Limited. Phone, you give it +2 548 8700 450 350. Fax no. Email. Upload image no. Save. Good. So it gives you the portfolio for the company and the actions. I love it. So if I go back to assets, then create new, I should see that company. You can see. So I love it. 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 These it's a good system. It's a good system. So if you're looking for something to manage your assets, including licenses, as you can see, accessories, consumables such as toners, and other components, then you could check out this system. And we at Gumzo Systems will be able to set it up for you. So we just wanted to see how easy or difficult it is to install it and implement it. So yeah, that's it. We hope you enjoyed, and keep watching. If there are any concerns, please write to us on the comment section. We'll be sure to get back to you with a solution where possible. We hope we are able to answer each and every question. Thank you for your time and audience.